In the spring of 1945, the town of Reggio Emilia in northern Italy lay in ruins. World War II had left behind broken buildings, broken families, and broken spirits. Bombs had destroyed homes, and the people were trying to rebuild their lives from the ground up. Amidst this chaos, something remarkable began to grow. Not just walls and streets, but a dream. As the war ended, many men were either dead or still prisoners of war. Women became the heart of the community's rebuilding efforts. These women had seen enough destruction. They believed that if they wanted to create a better future, they needed to start with the children. The women began to gather bricks from the rubble, selling abandoned German tanks and horses to collect funds. With their bare hands, they started building a school. A school built not just of bricks, but of hope. They didn't have official permission, fancy classrooms, or certified teachers. What they had was determination, cooperation, and a deep belief that their children deserved something better than the past they had endured. They imagined a place where children could grow up not as followers, but as thinkers, creators, and problem solvers. This small, parent-built school became a symbol of resistance and renewal. It stood for the idea that education could be a tool to change society, that children were not empty vessels to be filled, but powerful human beings full of potential. This belief set the foundation for what would later become known around the world as the Reggio Emilia Approach. Around this time, a young educator named Loris Malaguzzi heard about the school. Curious and inspired, he biked out from the city to see it. He was amazed by the courage of the parents and the energy of the children. Malaguzzi believed deeply in the power of education, and he had a bold vision of what childhood could be. Seeing this small school lit a spark in him, a spark that would later ignite a movement. Malaguzzi saw that these women had created something revolutionary, a school built on the belief that children are capable, creative, and deserving of respect. He decided to join them, helping to guide and shape the school's philosophy. Together, they dreamed of creating a new kind of education, one that would listen to the voices of children and value their ideas as much as the ideas of adults. And so, from the ashes of war, the seeds of Reggio Emilia were planted. What began as a single school, made of war rubble and hope, would grow into one of the most admired early childhood education approaches in the world. This was just the beginning, a quiet revolution born from the belief that a better world begins with better childhoods. When Loris Malaguzzi first rode his bicycle out to the small parent-built school in the countryside of Reggio Emilia, he didn't know that moment would change the future of education. He was young, passionate, and full of ideas about how children should learn. What he found there amazed him. A group of women who had created a school out of rubble, hope, and love. Malaguzzi was deeply moved by their belief that children could be active builders of their own learning. At that time, education in Italy was very traditional. Children were expected to sit quietly, listen to the teacher, and memorize facts. Malaguzzi thought this was wrong. He believed children were not empty containers waiting to be filled with knowledge. They were curious, capable, and creative. They were explorers, scientists, and artists from the very start of life. He joined the women's effort, first as an advisor, and later as the driving force behind their schools. Malaguzzi believed that children learn best when they are encouraged to ask questions, investigate, and discover answers themselves. He often said, "Nothing without joy," because he believed learning should be full of excitement and happiness, not fear or pressure. Malaguzzi began to shape what would become known as the Reggio Emilia Approach. He brought together teachers, parents, and even artists to work as a team in educating children. He encouraged teachers to observe children closely and build learning experiences based on the children's interests and ideas. This was very different from other schools, where teachers decided everything in advance and children just followed instructions. One of Malaguzzi's most famous beliefs was that children have 100 languages. He meant that children can express their thoughts and feelings in many ways, through drawing, painting, building, dancing, singing, talking, playing, and more. Schools, he said, must give space for all these languages so that children can show who they are and how they understand the world. He also believed that the environment itself should act like a third teacher. This meant classrooms had to be beautiful, welcoming, and full of interesting materials like natural objects, art supplies, mirrors, and light. Such spaces would inspire children to explore and create. This was another idea that made the Reggio Emilia schools stand out from typical classrooms, filled with desks and textbooks. Under Malaguzzi's guidance, the schools in Reggio Emilia grew and developed a strong reputation. They were not just teaching children facts. They were helping children learn how to think, question, imagine, and collaborate. Parents were deeply involved in the schools, and teachers worked as co-learners alongside the children. By the 1960s, the approach was becoming well known across Italy. Malaguzzi had planted the seeds of a revolution in early childhood education, showing the world a new way of seeing children, not as weak or needy, but as strong, rich, and full of potential. As the 1960s unfolded, the people of Reggio Emilia grew more determined to create schools that reflected their hopes for the next generation. Under Loris Malaguzzi's leadership, the community moved from that one humble school to building a network of municipal preschools and infant-toddler centers. It was a bold and ambitious plan, and it would soon transform the entire town. Malaguzzi believed that building these schools had to be a collective effort. He saw education not as something done to children, but something done with them, their families, and the community. He often said that the Reggio schools belonged to everyone. So, architects, teachers, parents, and local citizens came together to design and build spaces that welcomed children as valued members of society. Unlike typical schools with rows of desks and blank walls, the Reggio schools were designed to feel like warm, inspiring homes. The classrooms were filled with natural light from big windows. Plants, mirrors, and artwork brought beauty to the spaces. There were open areas for group projects, cozy corners for quiet reflection, and outdoor spaces that connected children to nature. Every detail was carefully chosen to support creativity and collaboration. One of the most innovative features was the atelier, an art studio filled with materials like clay, paint, fabric, wire, wood, and paper. In each school, a specially trained artist called an atelierista worked alongside teachers to help children explore their ideas through art. This showed how deeply the Reggio approach valued artistic expression as a form of thinking and learning, not just decoration or play. Parents also played a vital role in these schools. They didn't just drop off their children. They participated in meetings, workshops, and classroom activities. They helped shape the curriculum and shared their skills with the children. This strong parent involvement created a powerful sense of community and showed children that learning is something everyone values. Teachers in these schools were seen as co-researchers and co-learners, not just instructors. They observed the children closely, documented their conversations and projects, and used this documentation to plan the next steps in learning. This process allowed education to grow from the children's natural curiosity rather than from a fixed set of lessons. It also helped teachers and parents see the children's progress and thinking in visible, meaningful ways. By the early 1970s, the Reggio Emilia municipal schools had gained attention across Italy. People were amazed at how deeply the children were thinking, creating, and collaborating. The schools showed that even very young children could engage with complex ideas if given the right environment and support. Reggio Emilia was no longer just a small town rebuilding from war. It had become a center of educational innovation. Step by step, brick by brick, the people of Reggio Emilia had built more than just schools. They had built a community of trust, respect, and shared belief in the limitless potential of children. By the late 1970s and 1980s, the Reggio Emilia schools had become a shining example of what was possible when a community trusted in the power of children. Inside those bright, welcoming classrooms, children were building intricate sculptures from recycled materials, documenting the life cycle of butterflies, drawing detailed city maps, and discussing deep questions about friendship and fairness. Their learning was rich, joyful, and deeply meaningful. Word began to spread beyond Italy. Educators who visited the Reggio schools were astonished. They had never seen such young children working so thoughtfully and collaboratively. Instead of sitting quietly while adults talked, the children were leading their own projects, asking questions, testing ideas, and solving problems together. Visitors often left inspired, saying they wanted to create the same kind of magic in their own schools. In 1991, the international spotlight suddenly turned to this small town. The American magazine Newsweek published a list of the best schools in the world, and one of the Reggio Emilia preschools, the Diana School, was named number 1. This moment changed everything. The world wanted to know, What was happening in this little Italian town that made its school so extraordinary? Soon, educators, researchers, and journalists from around the globe were traveling to Reggio Emilia to learn more. They toured the schools, spoke with teachers and parents, and saw the children's projects and documentation. Many described it as stepping into another world, a world where children's voices were honored, creativity was celebrated, and learning felt alive. To help share their philosophy, the educators of Reggio Emilia began organizing exhibitions of the children's work. One of the most famous was called The 100 Languages of Children, named after Loris Malaguzzi's poem about children's many ways of expressing themselves. This traveling exhibition visited countries all over the world, showing how children could represent their ideas through drawing, sculpture, drama, writing, and more. It opened people's eyes to the power of young children's thinking. Universities started studying the Reggio Approach. Teachers began attending study tours and professional development programs in Reggio Emilia. Soon, educators in the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and many other countries were adapting the principles of the approach in their own early childhood centers. While they could not copy it exactly, because Reggio Emilia was rooted in its local culture, they could embrace its values: respect for children, collaboration, creativity, and learning through exploration. The town of Reggio Emilia responded to this growing interest by creating the Reggio Children Organization in 1994. Its mission was to share the Reggio philosophy with the world, while still protecting its spirit and quality. They organized conferences, publications, and partnerships with schools around the globe. A small post-war community school had now grown into a worldwide movement. What began as an act of hope by a group of determined mothers was now inspiring educators and families on every continent. Today, the name Reggio Emilia is known and respected all around the world. What started as a single, small school built from war rubble has grown into a powerful educational philosophy that has touched the lives of countless children, families, and teachers on every continent. But even as its influence has spread far and wide, the heart of the Reggio Emilia approach has remained the same: a deep belief in the power and potential of every child. At the core of this legacy is the idea that children are not passive receivers of knowledge, but active creators of their own learning. They are seen as strong, curious, capable, and full of wonder. In Reggio-inspired schools, children are trusted to explore big ideas, work on long-term projects, and make decisions about their learning. Teachers do not stand above them, giving instructions. Instead, they walk beside them as guides, researchers, and co-learners. The approach also continues to place great value on relationships. Learning is seen as a social process that grows through communication and collaboration. Children learn not only from adults, but also from one another, from their families, and from their community. Parents are considered partners, and their voices are welcomed in shaping the life of the school. This sense of shared responsibility is one of the reasons the Reggio approach has remained so strong for decades. Another lasting contribution is the Reggio belief in the 100 languages of children, the many ways children can express their thoughts and feelings. Whether through painting, building, music, storytelling, or dramatic play, every form of expression is seen as a valid and important part of learning. This idea has transformed how early childhood education views creativity. It shows that creativity is not an extra subject. It is central to how children make sense of the world. Even the physical environments of Reggio-inspired schools reflect this philosophy. Classrooms are designed as beautiful, thoughtful spaces filled with natural light, interesting materials, and open areas that encourage interaction. These environments remind children every day that they are valued and respected. They say, "You belong here. Your ideas matter." Today, hundreds of schools across the world call themselves Reggio-inspired. While they each adapt the principles to their own culture and context, they all share the same spirit: the belief that education can shape a better, more compassionate society. Loris Malaguzzi passed away in 1994, but his words still guide educators everywhere. He once said, "The child has 100 languages, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking." His dream was not only to change schools, but to change how the world sees children, and in many ways he succeeded. The story of Reggio Emilia is not just the story of schools. It is the story of hope, of community, and of what can happen when people choose to see children not as the future, but as powerful citizens of the present.